I get the opportunity to introduce to you Keiji Asakura of Asakura Robinson. Keiji is one of our architects that works with us very much in the city.
Landscape architects, because the
I'm sorry, landscape architect. And if you go see Keiji's projects, you can pick up, every one of you who do a project have your own technique. And I can tell across the city whose is whose. And in Keiji's case, if it doesn't have a bioswale or fruit trees, it's not Keiji's. Keiji Asakura.
Well, it's so good to see all of you here, many friends and colleagues and people who are really concerned about Houston and what the green space has transformed our city in the last dozen years. It's pretty remarkable, pretty remarkable. Thank you for all of you who has hands in transforming our city. I think it's pretty wonderful. And Joel Turner really is center of all of that. I know he is very modest, but he's very capable. In the last 3 administrations, he made that PPP happen. And without Joe, this wouldn't, we wouldn't be here and having this conversation. And there are other people too. Is Roxanne here? Roxanne Okanvik, the former director of Parks Board, certainly has played that big role in realizing that 100-year-old plan or the idea of connecting the greenways as a major trail system. This is a remarkable accomplishment. I know we're still working on it. I know it will be beautiful. And as Chris is here, Chris Knapp, I know he has been quite a force. Hi, Chris. And I think his vision alone has transformed many hundreds of acres of Houston into something that we are proud of as a major urban spaces. Chris, thank you so much for your dedicated effort here. And then people like Guy Hagstead, is Guy here too? Yeah, hi Guy. You know, from a sesquicentennial park, the downtown, and Discovery Green, Buffalo Bayou Park, and then what else you're working on, but I know whatever you're working on, it's going to be great. And I'm so glad that you're part of our city and that you're our friend. You know, Charles asked me that, yeah, Keiji, you don't have to speak because we always have to lead this conversation with the old timer. And, okay. All right, so here I am. There are a generation of landscape architects who preceded our generations who are no longer with us, but we see that landscape every day. Charles Tapley, who passed away last year, we sorely miss his presence here today. I think Charles could have had a different kind of a twist to this conversation. And then there are people like Jim Reeves with SWA Group, who passed away, a dozen years ago. He certainly has transformed those 1980s and 1990s landscape in a very profound way. There are people like Fred Buxton, who is I guess the former employer of yours, Sheila, and Fred has done quite a bit. And then there's people like you hear about, Pat Flemings, and there are many very talented people who really try to do something here in the city. And perhaps the environment is not as kind today to landscape architects, but nonetheless they made a remarkable contribution. So I just want to acknowledge that. I'm not the only old timer. There are people who preceded us that made a huge contribution. So. What is about the transformation? Why are we having this conversation? Houston is a great place. Well, not many people share that conversation. The people think that Houston is a different kind of place. But Houston certainly has transformed, and Yes, Sheila and I, as an old timer, has witnessed all that, from a very different landscape environment to today, where we have internationally renowned talents coming here, taking our work away, right, Sheila? So, you know, since the 80s, it's not unlike any other metropolitan area in the country. There's been a huge resurgence of downtown, a lot of focus on downtown, and then I know the Guy Hagstead knows all about the downtown transformation. There's a desire to create more human space. That's not any different from any other cities. That's really the competitive edge of any of these metropolitan areas. And reconnecting people to the nature. I mean, these conversation happens everywhere. So what is so unique about Houston? I think that's what we're going to talk about. What is Houston? What makes Houston different? And I think it's the one word here is the PPP, the private-public partnership that Joe has talked about. That certainly has been the key in changing the dialogue in Houston. Yes, Houston built some beautiful buildings in the 70s and 80s. I guess we needed some of that connecting tissues that makes those places a more livable and a wonderful place. What's the big shift? You know, yes, Houston is oil town. From 1980s, it has changed quite a bit, and I think the diversity in our city has created a different kind of mix and different attitude towards how the city looks. So what we say is this sort of the Houston brand of urbanism. What is that? What's it going to look like? Is it continually fill up that empty spaces outside the loop? Grand Parkway, Beltway 8, spread all that stuff? Or are we really trying to look at our natural system and make it better? I think that's really been the conversation here. And what our job's been is to really formulate and synthesize these changes, the cultural shifts, and we're going to talk a lot more about the cultural shift, and that's the landscape architect's jobs to make sure that it has the cultural base as a uniquely Houston. That's sort of the conversation. So wrap it up. I think where I would like to see this landscape of Houston go, first of all, the bike network, connecting tissue, extending that bike network to us is very important as an alternative transportation. In turn, it will create better pedestrian environment, a better city fabric. That's kind of what we want. And the effort and the ideas that made big parks important, we want to make sure that goes into the neighborhood. Creating the right neighborhood, a livable neighborhood, is really the challenge for us in the future. And that's a challenge for local landscape architects. You know, these famous landscape architects will go away and then look for another opportunities. And you know, Jane, we'll be here making sure that these ideas that these wonderful, talented people had planted, seeded here, will continue to grow. Thank you so much.